Padilla-Brown knows the way to go. Mushroom magic, he's a guided teacher with my conjured wisdom. He's a shining beacon from the cordyceps he cultivates with care, sharing knowledge, breathing life into the air. Yes, you better learn about the fungi, see the world. Yes, you better cultivate your mind, let it unfurl. Teaching children on the ground wants to sustainable practices, making dreams come true. Hand in hand, man, he's a citizen scientist, breaking only one. Together with nature we can rise and never fall. Yeah, you better learn about the fungi, see the world. Yes, you better cultivate your mind and it unfurl. In the bomb of the vein, the light best to pop. And the seed roll up by the sun. Everybody go. Money's made is fun while you go these days. You can show a deed of manipulation. Yes, you better learn about the fungi, see the world. Yes, you better cultivate your mind and it unfurl.
Dinner parties. Anybody here seen my work before? I'm talking to a crowd doesn't know who I am. This is awesome. All right, so my name is William. I started this company, Micro Symbiotics, 10 years ago. It's an ecological research business. I started it in central Pennsylvania to study the environment, to study undervalued aspects of the environment that people could utilize in their lives medicinally or could economically impact people's lives. So one of the first things I did is I wrote a book on cordyceps. I wish I would have grabbed it, but I have a booth by the check-in tent. You can come check it out. I have some books over there. But I wrote a book on how to cultivate cordyceps. I actually started the first commercial cordyceps farm in the United States, and that's really what started my whole career in the mushroom space. Although I had started a mushroom business, it just really wasn't like something I could stand on. Everybody was like, "Oh, it's just a hobby." Especially like 10 years ago, people didn't think mushrooms was real business. It was like starting to get that hype. But in central Pennsylvania, being a high school dropout kid and being black, come on now, people were just like, "What the fuck are you doing? Growing mushrooms?" I can't even open a bank account still in Pennsylvania. For if I got denied open bank account because my type of business, and I'm just like, this is Pennsylvania, it's the mushroom capital of the fucking U.S. What are you talking about? You want to tell that shit to somebody else? You know what I'm saying? Crazy. But I've been into mushrooms for a really long time. I've been teaching about mushrooms for a really long time. I've been posting on YouTube about mushrooms for a really long time and hosting a festival I call Myco Fest, first weekend in August. Every single year in central Pennsylvania, we bring out experts from all around the world on cultivating mushrooms, on working with mushrooms, textiles, remediation, all sorts of things. There's actually this really cool endophyte, a fungus that lives inside of plants. Most plants have fungus that lives inside of them that is responsible for a lot of the cool things that we think is just the plant. There was a new species described in the Paraglandula genus that lives inside of morning glory flowers, the leaves, the stems, and it transfers through the seed. And it is responsible in part for the production of lysergic alkaloids in the plant. Really fucking cool. The authors of that research are going to be at Myco Fest this year. So we get all sorts of really cool people. And I'm going to be talking about truffles. We actually have a kid. He's actually an undergraduate at Michigan State University right now. He's going to be coming out to Myco Fest this year. His name's Alisane So. He produced a research paper describing tuber canurebulatum and tuber cumberlandense, two new gourmet edible species of truffles that have been described in the east coast of the United States. There's a lot more species of truffles described in the Pacific Northwest, Northern California. There's truffles here right now. There's truffles everywhere. There's trees. There's all different types of truffles. There's truffle morels, truffles amanitas, truffle chanterelles. We're going to get all into it about why I think truffles are the Earth's ultimate mushrooms. So that's enough about me. I think I will talk about myself maybe one more time, but I don't like to do that much. Cool. So I got interested in truffles Just like I said, I dropped out of high school. I'm from Central Pennsylvania. There wasn't really a lot of truffles in my world, so I got interested in truffles from YouTube. I saw this video from Munchies. It's called Day with the Dealer. And it was this dude. He comes out. He's like, "Yo, I got that black. I got that white." And they're in New York City. I'm just like, "Yo, what the fuck?" And then it's like in the back of this van, and it's like truffles, just like black truffles, white truffles, got exotic mushrooms and shit. And it's this like Indian American kid. He's like fucking 20 some years old, and he's rolling around with his own brand in New York City selling to Michelin star restaurants and shit. I'm just like, yo, what the fuck? I'm in Central Pennsylvania. I'm like, yo, I want to sell mushrooms. I want to do this kind of shit. How do I do this kind of shit? So I started my mushroom business in 2015. This video came out 2014. I was already growing mushrooms, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're all young, we're growing mushrooms, you know what I mean? Maybe not everybody took that same route. Maybe not everybody was extracting acacia confucia bark in their apartment when they're 17 years old. Maybe not everybody had an apartment when they're 17 years old. My story is fucking crazy, but it's been a lot of fun. But this is how I got interested in truffles. And I started selling them like pretty early on. Like I was like foraging mushrooms in Pennsylvania, hella mushrooms, especially on a good rainy season. I'm picking like 100 pounds of fresh mushrooms out the woods on a day. And people are like, see my pictures. Because like all the Pennsylvania boys, all the good old boys in Pennsylvania, they'll post pictures. Their truck full of morels, their truck full of chanterelles, just like laid out with all these mushrooms in their whole kitchen table and shit. So I'm like, yo, I'm from Pennsylvania. This is the culture. I take pictures of all these mushrooms, except all my followers are like all these like ecologists and conservationists and shit from around the world. They're like, that's a lot of mushrooms. Didn't you leave any? And I'm just like, yo, you've been in the woods in Pennsylvania? There's hella woods out here. It's literally called Penn's Woods. There's mushrooms all over the place because these people fucked up the woods. There's not enough animals in this bitch. Hella trees, hella mushrooms. I'm taking the bitches all day. Hella mushrooms I'm leaving. I find more old eaten by animals than I could ever take. But I'm out there and I'm taking what I need to take to make my shit happen. So whenever the mushrooms started to get all frozen up and shit from the winter time, then the truffles came in season. They'd be imported from Europe. So this is traditional. Since I started selling truffles started coming in from Australia, New Zealand, Chile. And what's different about these places is that they're on the southern hemisphere. So their wintertime is at the opposite wintertime of the European wintertime. So while I started selling truffles, the really valuable truffles on the market became available all year to a certain extent. So yeah, I started selling truffles. I was like 23, something like that, just to make extra money in the wintertime. And I didn't really like think about it that deep at first because I didn't really understand it. I was just like trying to understand mushrooms. I was teaching myself about mushrooms off the internet to the point where I figured out about cordyceps and then fucking Lightspeed launched into the world of mycology. But did any of y'all not know truffles were mushrooms before that you came to sit down here? Truffles are mushrooms. So you knew they were mushrooms? Oh, didn't know they were mushrooms. Yeah, truffles are mushrooms. And they're mushrooms that grow underground, so they're called hypogeous. Mushrooms that grow above ground are called epigeous mushrooms. We don't usually say this because everybody only interacts with the ones that grows above ground. But truffles are mushrooms that used to grow above ground that evolved to grow below ground over hundreds of millions of years. Crazy as fuck, right? So they're actually fruiting bodies. And most people, when I say truffles, they'll be like, oh, like magic truffles, like psychedelic truffles from Amsterdam. And I'm just like, nah, those aren't even truffles. Those are sclerotia. They don't produce spores. Mushrooms produce spores. Truffles produce spores and they can't release them in the environment. So they produce some of the illest chemicals in the whole mycological realm to get animals to come interact with them. And like, I've been exposing my kids to all different types of truffle smells since a young age. And I will open up different things or we'll come in different environments and they'll be like, it smells like truffles in here. That smells like truffles. I got this thing of baby bananas from Trader Joe's the other day and I opened it and they're like, it smells like truffles in the car. And it's everything for the rest of their life they're going to associate with truffles because the smell is so complex, because it smells like so many different things in the environment that it's in, because it wants to attract anything that can eat it in the environment that it's in. So it's going to smell like everything amazing in that environment. It's fucking incredible. So how long? Oh shit! This is actually I'm gonna maybe slip up maybe once or twice. This is an old version of this document because I don't have Wi-Fi. I forgot to download it. But humans have been interacting with this mushroom for a really long time. So this is some truffle experts, specifically one James Trappy. James Trappy is the author of the most truffle research papers that you will ever find. I got the luxury of interacting with him because I got casted to do a piece with PBS in Oregon last year on truffles. And when they were filming, they put me with him to talk to him like he was like gaming me up like I'm the next truffle person. I was like, yo, what the fuck? This is crazy. This dude wrote all the papers on truffles, and he's like, I was like, what do you know? What do you know about the desert truffles, the Terfezia? This is what these are called. People are cultivating these. These grow in northern Africa, and the Middle East. And he said people have probably been eating those truffles since time immemorial. Basically, he's like, we don't know. People have been eating them shits forever. All of the cradle of civilization is from here. The truffles grow all in the cradle of civilization. These truffles. Who knows if these aren't something that was once cultivated by the first agrarians that ever farmed anything? I'm sure they would have had a more adept understanding of their environment than we even think about. So yeah, these truffles are grown in the desert, and there's some experts that believe that this may be the manna from heaven that the Israelites were finding in the desert during Exodus. They say, oh, this thing comes with the morning dew on the top of the ground. This truffle grows very close to the ground. People go collect it with sticks, finding little bumps in the ground. In the desert, it grows with rock roses, these little plants. So a lot of the truffles that we're going to be talking about grow with trees, but these truffles actually grow with like small flowering plants. And these truffles are more meaty. People are going to eat these more like a potato or like a meat, put it in stews and things like this, than an actual like shaving truffle like you see in the traditional kind of culture. So yeah, I love truffles so much. I started making a documentary about it because I realized that everything that people knows about truffles is lies. And it's all perpetuated by a couple families that runs the whole industry, just like everything else. But I don't talk about that. You didn't hear that from me. Yeah, my documentary is not about that. My documentary is about all the other stuff, and then people can come to their own conclusions. But everything that most people knows about truffles is a lie. And the truffle market is super, super volatile, especially for farmers and foragers. That's the closest to the actual raw ingredient. So I wanted to make a documentary about it because I also wanted to let the world know that this is something that you can be involved in. One, this is something that can revitalize our soils. Two, there's hella native truffles that are undescribed in North America, and people are trying to cultivate European ones here first. Weird. And we don't have a market for the ones here, and they're really valuable and they taste really good, but we have to create the culture for it. So I'm really trying to push a new culture. So just like I told you, I wrote a book on cordyceps. I had the first cordyceps farm in the U.S. Now people grow cordyceps in every country that is a Latin-based speaking country since I did this in 2015. Look it up. You can figure this out on your own time. But since I wrote in English about how to write cordyceps, it hadn't been written about in any Latin-based country, in any language, in any public sense. Everything was all in Asian languages. I wrote this, and now people grow cordyceps all around the world. I went to Italy last year to train the first person how to breed cordyceps in Italy. I can't wait till I get some land and some funding. I did this shit with no bread, dropped out of high school, fucking getting shit for growing herb, all this shit, crazy. I still most of my business is based in prohibition state. This shit's crazy. Pennsylvania sucks for that, but otherwise it's really beautiful. So I went to Spain, right? Spain is the center point of truffle culture. But what does this mean? This means so much more than what I'm saying. I'm speaking in layers here. I'm trying to give you guys a compact file in a little bit amount of time I have to interact with you guys that you can go unzip it later, because I'm going to say a lot of things really fast, and then maybe you can go understand it in your own time. So humans have been cultivating plants for 12,000 years. Humans in Asia have been cultivating fungi for 2,000 years. Humans that speak Latin-based languages have been cultivating fungi for 200 years. That's not that much time. Imagine the first 200 years of cultivating plants. You wouldn't know shit. Humans have been able to figure out how to successfully cultivate fungus that lives on the roots of plants for 60 years, and they figured it out in Spain. So I went to Spain to go figure that shit out, because everybody's looking at it like, oh, they figured out truffle cultivation. Spain is the highest production region of truffles in the whole world because they figured it out. But you're saying they figured out how to cultivate mushrooms that grows on trees, because once I got there, I also figured out that they cultivate saffron milk caps. So I know a lot of people that got land, trying to figure out how to get land and trying to plant food forests, right? And they're going to plant these trees, and they can plant these trees and then just let random fate happen about what mushrooms are going to grow in your forest for the rest of your life. Or you could pick it. It doesn't just have to be truffles. So that's one thing I want to tell you guys before I get through the rest of this shit. But yeah, so I started making a documentary about it. Check it out. It's called Organic Nobility. I wish I was connected to Wi-Fi. I'll show you the trailer of it. I don't know what happened here. Okay, here we go. Okay, so truffles, just like I said, they used to be above ground. They turned into cups and then they go below ground. So some of y'all have been taking psychedelics before, yeah? Yeah. So some of y'all had experienced distortions of space and time before. Okay. Um, when you are out in nature and if you look at everything with your lifespan bias, it looks like everything is static. It looks like everything is just like this right now. But everything is changing from 100 million years ago to the next 100 million years. Everything's changing from yesterday to tomorrow. Everything looks like this from everything that happened to it forever. This is why the leaf is shaped like this. This is why the bark is shaped like this. This is why these animals look like this, because environmental pressures over forever made them look like this. It's literally telling you things. Terence McKenna said, DNA is protein syntax uttering itself into existence. These things are literally telling you about the history of the fucking world in their shapes and forms. And most people can't even see this because we said, this is a tree. This is Quercus. Like we give everything all these fucking descriptions and denominate them down to these little things. But if you look at this cup fungus may be showing as a cup right now, but it may be a mushroom that's trying to close its spores up and protect them. It may be trying to turn into a puffball. So the last known relative of truffles is a cup fungus from South America. And the Tuberaceae diverged 156 million years ago. If you guys want to get to the nerdy stuff, I might talk about that again in a little bit. Damn, I'm only 20 minutes into this. Let's grow. All right, cool. If I'm talking too fast for anybody, let me know. All right, cool. So, this is what I was just talking about. We were seeing this selection for reduced water loss and animal dispersal. Because again, once the mushrooms, especially once the mushrooms go underground, because puffballs still have the ability to release their spores into the open air. Once the mushrooms go underground, they lose that ability, and that's when they get chemically diverse and very interesting. Especially if you love cannabis. I mean, I don't know how the fuck all y'all got out here if you don't like weed, right? So this is one of the things that got, I don't know where it is in this document particularly. Just like I said, I got an older document right now, but I might skip around here. So hella animals, by the way, that recently Patagonian birds have been found that eat truffles. Lowland gorillas in Africa have been found eating truffles. All different, every class of animal eats truffles, and I'm gonna show you why. But there's reptiles, turtles, all different types of insects, goats, bears, all different classes of animals, especially in the Pacific Northwest in those Douglas fir forests. The fuck else is out there for these animals to eat? They just turn that shit into a giant plantation of trees. It's hella truffles. That represents a lot of the nutritional value that's even in those forests. And pigs love truffles, and people know this because people think that people use pigs to find truffles still. They don't, because they like to eat the truffles. Truffles have a really interesting sex life. I'm not going to get into that right now. But their sex life involves them having to have all right. So I don't know how much y'all know about mycorrhiza either, but unless a seductive mycorrhiza is introduced into the environment of a complex forest, a tree usually won't become promiscuous with its roots. But a tree can become promiscuous with its roots if an interesting mycorrhiza enters the environment. Question? I mean promiscuous in the sense that it may start interacting with the new fungus instead of the fungus that it has on it already. So if a tree has a healthy relationship with the fungus on its roots, it can keep it for hundreds of years. But it may become promiscuous in some parts of its roots. But it usually will just stay with one fungus on its entirety of its roots for its whole existence if it's a healthy environment. Okay, so so even though that the truffle fungus is on the roots, it needs new spores to get put into the environment every year to make every single truffle is made from. So the animals eats the spores. It goes shit in the environment, and that poop has the spores in it, and that spore germinates and becomes a truffle on the fungus. It has sex with the fungus that's on the roots. That point becomes a truffle. All right, cool. And sometimes it has the sexual interaction from truffles that didn't get dug up from the year before. And there's research saying that truffle dispersal is impacted by the habits of the animals, but I think the habits of the animals are more impacted by the impact of the truffles, because I think the truffles are highly seductive and highly complex and has a long history of of hijacking our nervous systems for its use. And a lot of time, in certain instances, because Paul Stamets says this, he's like one of the great mycologists of the past 100 years. He says organisms that team with fungi are the most resilient through extinction events. So we'll talk about this a little bit more. We see a lot of evolutionary experiments, and this is what I was going to say, why we see most animals have interactions with truffles, because truffles have been around for 156 million years. All the animals that we know were tiny as fuck until all the dinosaurs died about 60 some whatever million years ago. What was the KPG extinction event? 167 million years ago? I think it was. So the all the animals until the dinosaurs died was smaller than a cat, because all the ecological roles larger than a cat was already taken by a reptile, and the reptiles would eat anything that would get to any kind of competition with them. So all the animals were this small. You can go check it out. Evolutionary biology is way more awesome nowadays because we have molecular biology. And I've been doing molecular biology since the pandemic. Crazy little side note. I trained myself how to do DNA sequencing during the pandemic because they gave me money and they told me that I couldn't leave my house. So what the fuck am I gonna do? I'm gonna teach myself how to do DNA sequencing. And everybody's like, yo, what the fuck? How did this kid teach himself how to do DNA sequencing? He didn't finish high school. They had me go talk about it at Penn State for the undergraduates and the professors in the faculty of the environmental microbiology and plant pathology department. This shit was crazy. They let me go around see everything I wanted to in the whole university. Yeah, so everything was that tiny, right? Fucking crazy. And so they were eating detritus. They're eating dead shit on the ground. They're eating anything they're allowed to eat. Is mostly just dead and dying materials on the ground. This is why most animals have interactions with truffles, because most animals have been eating these things since before they are what they are right now. Make sense? The reason that truffles are so interesting and smell so complex and trigger such feelings and emotions for so many people, and they trade them for so much money, they can influence and teach us and are expressing and talking to us through hundreds of millions of years of interacting with us since before we are what we are right now. So I knew this is why I like to go to cannabis events sometimes, because not everybody gets this shit, and guess why I get so geeked out on it. So I don't know if it's in here particularly. Let me see. So it's not in here. All right. So there's research from like early 2010s that shows melanistic truffles, particularly tuber melanosporum, produces anandamide. Does anybody know what that is? I'm sorry? Anandamide, you read about it. Okay. Anandamide is an endocannabinoid. It's a cannabinoid our body produces. It's what the plant mimics, what THC is mimicking in our own body that we produce for ourselves. So very interesting. And it's also interesting because fungi have a more molecularly ancestral production of cannabinoids than plants. This means that fungi have been producing cannabinoids longer than plants have been producing cannabinoids. And so I've been studying this because I think that rosin and rosin technology is one of the most interesting anthropological evolutionary instances in the past 2,000 years. I think the way that cannabis emerged and how it emerged and how it's impacted humanity in the little bit of time that it has is very, very interesting. I think because every piece of material that we have about the history of cannabis shows that humans have mostly been interacting with it as a drug type for only the past 2,000 years or so. Like 10,000 years for all different kinds of things, but like 12,000 years for all different kinds of things, but 2,000 years of turning it into this drug type, figuring out how to sift it, literally people burning it in a fire, figuring out can get you a little geek from the smoke, to sticking their heads into a fucking thing to get the smoke, to making devices. Now we can walk around with portable devices that vaporizes the perfect resin that shit is the craziest evolution. I think it's crazy. So I wanted to figure out where it starts from. So jellyfish literally has synapses with nerves that use cannabinoids like ours. It's one of the most basic life forms that we can relate to. One of the reasons why this is interesting for me, and one of the reasons why I think prohibition is like way crazier than people think of just like justice and shit like this. I think it's like a biological crime, because nervous systems were not able to complexify until the evolution of the endocannabinoid system in nature at all. Cells were not able to complexify beyond single cellular systems into network systems until cannabinoids, because cannabinoids allow down-regulated glutamate response that says, hey, I'm inflamed, we're about to get fucked up. No cells could communicate like this until cannabinoids. Cannabinoids emerge, then this emergence of networks of cells, which is nervous systems, brains, things like this. Doesn't emerge until the emergence of cannabinoids. So I think that prohibition of cannabinoids is prohibition of biological evolution, especially in humanity, because we're mostly just doing it to ourselves. But there's other ways to get cannabinoids. This is what I'm saying about truffles. So just like I was saying, they evolved 156 million years ago. Really fucking crazy, because 225 million years ago, Pangea began to split. This is after the extinction event of the dinosaurs, where mammalian orders began to really diversify around 100 million years ago. And they diversified in the south. And then they migrated more north. And why this is important is, just like I mentioned, the last known relative of the truffles that's not a truffle is still in the southern hemisphere of our planet. So all these things to say, I might have just spun a lot of people out in a lot of different directions, and I'm going to get back to just more nerdy truffle shit. But I think that in the research paper that shows that that melanistic truffles produce anandamide, it suggests that they produce them as an ancient attractant to early truffle eaters with a receptive cannabinoid system. I believe that to be true, because there's amounts of anandamide that are in truffles right now that, if you consume them, can induce bliss states. And this is why rich people love truffles. It's not just because they're expensive and it smells crazy. It's because it can make your brain grow. At amounts that you can consume in truffles can induce neuroplasticity in adult humans. So what the fuck is going to do to a little animal? You know what I'm saying? It's going to complexify them so that it can understand how to find it again in a complex environment. And one of the things I think, I don't know how many people have heard Terence McKenna's stoned ape theory, because this is my truffled vole theory. I think this is the predecessor of the stoned ape theory. I think ever since animals diverged from fungi, fungi has been expressing ways for us to interact with it that complexifies our nervous system, so it looks more and more like mycelium. Because then it gives us more complexity of interactions with the environment. So we can get back to a little bit about the history, because I told you all about the history with the people in the Middle East and Northern Africa. Well, the people in the Middle East and Northern Africa gave a lot of the people in Rome information about civilization. So of course they're going to exchange information about all of their different materia medica, which truffles would have been a part of. And then the Roman farmers also had pigs in managed forests that would have had truffles. So the pigs would have been the inclination or of the discovery of the European truffles, which the information then disseminated west until it got to Spain, reached its pinnacle, and become modern truffle cultivation as we know it today. So yeah, cultivation really started in the 19th century with this man that was Joseph Talon in southern France, was finding truffles underneath oak trees. People knew they were underneath the oak trees. They're finding truffles underneath the oak trees. He starts planting his acorns under trees that he knows has truffles, and then transplanting his trees. And he was able to successfully get those trees inoculated with the truffle fungus. So this starts the first cultivation. This is in the 19th century. We haven't had successful reproduction of cultivation just in the past 60 years. So this is what it looks like now. Getting a plantation or a nursery of oaks in a semi-sterile environment where you can control the fungus that's going to interact with the seedling as soon as it sprouts. Because if you can introduce the truffle fungus to this sprout first, then it may hold this interaction for the rest of its life. And this is where I come in with my youthful energy into space. It's really crazy how the space is, and this is why I'm trying to make this documentary. But like when I was in Europe and I was talking about selling American truffles and trying to start a North American truffle culture, they're like one of the biggest dealers of truffles in the world was like laughing at me. He's like, nobody's gonna want to buy American truffles. American truffles aren't worth anything. Why are you playing with American truffles? Talk to me. I can get you the best price. Of course he's gonna be talking to me like this, but he's selling all the truffles in the whole world. Like he even had he'll sell the truffles to anybody that wants it, but he's like, they're not worth anything. It's not worth it. But I'm like, all right, so people are trying to cultivate European truffles in North America. Didn't know that there was gourmet truffles in the environment they're trying to cultivate them in. The gourmet truffles from their environment show up on their farm. They call them weed truffles, and they try and get rid of them. And they're also gourmet, and there's no culture for it. And so when I went to go film my documentary, I went to Spain, right? I told you I went to Spain to go. I took a class in Eastern Spain on truffle cultivation, plantation management, and microscopic analytics of truffles, so I could be able to look at the roots of trees and identify the species by the way it looks on the roots. And so I did this because I wanted to be able to teach people in the U.S. about how to do this, and I think this is the best investment in the world because I think fiat currency is not going to be worth anything, and I think that nature is always worth something, and I think that because truffles grow on the trees that has nuts on the top of them, that you can produce value on the bottom and the top. Why wouldn't you do that? The only plant I have tattooed on me is an oak tree. It's literally a god. It's a pillar of life. There's so many delicious microorganisms that are involved with an oak tree. It's just like, I don't know. It's just amazing to me. So, and there's way more other trees that produce all sorts of benefits for the environment that truffles have associations with. So the other place I went to film my documentary was Oregon, because Oregon has the Oregon Truffle Festival, and the guy that started the Oregon Truffle Festival, his name's Charles. He single-handedly, with his festival, changed the price of North American truffles, because people didn't care about them before. People were raking them up in Oregon and in Washington. People were raking them up, and people can't rake up mature truffles. You don't know when it's ready. That's why people use dogs. That's why people think that people use pigs still. People don't use pigs. People use dogs. Dogs will smell them and find them, and they just want a pat on the head or a treat. Pigs will find them and they want to eat them. So people use dogs. And if dogs find ripe ones, and so they started using dogs in Oregon and Washington to find specifically ripe ones, and then they did blind taste tests versus the European ones. They're selling for upwards of $1,500, $1,800, $2,000 a pound, and people were choosing the native truffles over the European ones. They just have never been put in a position to interact with them. So I'm just like, we're just going to completely write off our country's truffles and start growing these ones from Europe before we even know that they exist. This shit gets me. I'm like, yo, what the fuck is going on? It's just crazy. Why doesn't nobody talk about this shit? I'm gonna talk about it. All right. So like, so people start with the trees, and they have to get spores, right? And this is where this shit gets crazy. Italy actually banned it because when China found out that the European people were actually eating the truffles, China has a lot of truffles that looks like the European truffles. But they don't smell like the European truffles. They don't smell as strong as the European truffles. So people in China started selling their truffles into Europe at really low rates, and people started buying these truffles and cutting them into the European truffles and then sending them in the US. And so people were getting Chinese truffles mixed into their packs. They just put enough of the European ones in there. When you open it, it smells like it, but then all the rest of them don't smell like that. And so if you want to start a truffle farm, you have to get truffles. You have to use a whole truffle, dry it up, and grind it up and use those spores in a slurry, or use those spores to inoculate the bottoms of your trees, use your seedlings. And so if you just get a pound and you trust somebody and you didn't look at all these truffles and identify every single truffle in your pound, and you just put that shit and blended it up, then you might have Chinese truffles growing on your farm, and you waste years of your life because some of these truffles won't even start producing for 7 years. So you're wasting 7 years of watering a whole orchard, and it has Chinese truffles that aren't worth anything yet. I'm not saying that's not worth anything, because I think truffles are the Earth's ultimate mushrooms, and I know all mushrooms are medicinal. Even the ones that can kill you are medicinal. You just have to denature or separate the toxins. But some of the ones that can kill you is like the most powerful medicines. So all mushrooms are medicinal. So there's something valuable about the truffles, but they're not as valuable in the market. So you might have wasted your time when everything is actually worth something and money is becoming worthless. In the next 7 years, you better have truffles that's about to be worth crazy. And especially because I'm going crazy talking about truffles all around the whole US. I'm making a documentary that's about to go crazy all around the US. Check it out, Organic Nobility on YouTube. You can check out the trailer for it. It's going to impact truffle culture, just like I told y'all. Some of y'all weren't here, but you can check out my book I wrote about cordyceps. But ever since I started talking about cordyceps, wrote a book about cordyceps, started cordyceps farming in the US. People started doing that all around the world, everywhere that speaks any Latin-based language. So like, I already saw it happen with cordyceps. I'm like, yo, I could do this shit with truffles. I know I could do this shit with truffles. All I gotta do is keep talking about it till it reaches a certain point. And shit, I already got off PBS, and I only started talking about truffles on that level since the end of the pandemic. I came out the pandemic talking about this shit crazy, because it was during the pandemic. Just like I told you, I had nothing but they're giving me fucking stimulus, and they told me to stay at my house. I taught myself DNA sequencing, and then I started making my truffle volt theory. I put together all those different pieces of research. If anybody needs that, I'm gonna put that together real soon. All the different pieces of I can cite all of the research papers that I used to figure out all of the data that I mentioned, why I think that truffles have been impacting mammals for so long. Y'all know how much the smell has to do with it, why we care about so much about protecting the smell and aroma of our cannabis, why people comes around with ice packs and all this different kind of shit to protect the aroma, because it's so much about the aroma. The experience is so much about the aroma. I don't know if anybody knows this dude, David Wolf. Maybe he got censored off the internet when I was younger, so maybe a lot of people still don't know who he is, but maybe some people followed him before he got censored. He's one of the first people I saw get censored off the internet. But This dude, I went to go see him talk in New York because he was like, as a young man with a crazy world going on, this was the first man I saw that I could look up to that was doing something that was like, you're actually doing something I think is impactful to the world, like in a way that I can relate to, in a way that's like big, like I'm trying to do shit in my life. Because I was like this is the first time I can go talk to this many people. This is the first time a black man like me in the U.S. could go around and talk to this many people. My grandfather told me this shit. He grew up in Jim Crow era. He grew up, he couldn't talk to people, couldn't go to the same school as white people. He said he became an English professor. He told me, you're gonna learn English. You can get a platform like nobody in our family could get a platform. Go do this shit. He didn't tell me to do this shit specifically, but I know right now I can communicate to the camera right here. I can communicate to millions of people. I talk to 600 to 700 million or 1,000 people a month. I've been talking to millions of people my whole fucking life through this internet shit. So I'm just like, all right, let's get this shit out there. So this dude is the first person I saw that did this shit on a high level. I go to listen to him talk in New York. He says, I grew up also in a church, so I didn't know about all this shit I thought was crazy shit, right? So he says the most mystical elements in nature are levitating. He's like, how do trees grow up whenever gravity's pulling down? And I'm just like, what the fuck are you talking about, bro? Levitating shit? And like people are talking about like talking to plants and shit. I'm like, yo, my grandfather was an English professor. I grew up in the church. I don't know none about this shit, but I like weed. You know what I'm saying? I like tripping on this L. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just kind of cool. So I was like learning about it, all of it, and I wanted to know about the medicine of the earth and shit. So like, it took me a while of transitioning that shit, and it was a crazy transition, a beautiful transition. And what I came to understand, he's saying about the levitational elements. When you open your jar of herb, what do? You smell that shit. You smell that shit. And if it's loud, you don't even got to stick your nose down. You know what I'm saying? Because that's just like going to heaven. That shit, the illest elements in that shit are trying to go into space. Crazy. Crazy as fuck, right? All right, so truffles, they're growing underground. Sometimes they're not ripe until there's literally ice on the ground, right? So their chemicals has to be volatile at low temperatures because they need an animal to come smell them when it might be cold as fuck outside. So they can't have all their shit be volatilizing at high temperatures. They have to have it be volatilizing at low temperatures. All right, it can't be water soluble because if it rains, the smell will go away. When the water hits the environment, the smell will go away. Then nothing will be able to find it. Can't be water soluble. This shit figured out how to make the craziest chemicals to be found in all of the craziest environments. And some of y'all weren't here earlier, but I mentioned truffles need animals to find them. And these animals are interested in all of these different elements of the environment that smell and taste like all different things. And this truffle really, really needs all of these different animals to find them and spread it as far and wide as possible. So the truffle smells like crazy as fuck, right? It smells like, what the fuck? Sometimes it smells like Badussi. It smells like cheese. It smells like onions. It smells like gas. It smells like solvents. It smells like paint. It smells like plastic. It's what the fuck? Why does it smell like all this stuff? It smells like everything in that environment. Y'all know about terroir, you know what I'm saying? Rest in peace, Frenchie. I got a piece from him. I got permission from his family to use a piece in my documentary. He talks about terroir. The truffle is the ultimate terroir of the environment. The truffle is the distillation of all of the desirable aromatics of the environment because it needs to attract everything that's interested in all these different things in the environment. So that's why it smells so crazy. So you can take this gas that's trying to come out, not water soluble. What's it gonna be? Fat soluble. You know what I'm saying? So you can stick it with fats because the spiritual elements, the levitational elements, they're gonna be leaving anyway. So while you're storing it, cold storing it, you want to store it with fats, cocoa butter, butter, cheese, nuts. I had nuts at the Oregon Truffle Festival in this granola. That shit was loud. With Oregon truffles are really solventy. So there's truffles that are solventy, there's truffles that are fruity. One of the things I started to realize, I was like, how the fuck do people take petroleum and make everything out of fucking petroleum, right? Like literally every smell, every color, every fucking textile, everything, the gas. How do we do this shit, right? Because petroleum is ancient everything. It's all the environment into extract, into full concentrate. Everything of the environment, full concentrate over whatever, however many fucking millions of years. You can take that shit out and chemically pull everything the fuck back out of it. That's why, right? And so I was like, y'all are the perfect crowd for this shit. Cause how come chem turned into fruity? How come petroleum makes all the artificial fruit smells that weed smells like fruit smells? How come that same smell of weed that smells like gasoline and petroleum makes the fruity smells that we're able to get out of petroleum? You know what I'm saying? I think there's a chemical pathway. I think there's some sort of chemistry here that is correlating. because it's the same that I find with truffles. There's solventy truffles, there's truffles that smells like gas, there's truffles that smells like fruit, there's truffles that smells like all these, like all different types of herb. That's why I said, since my kids smell truffles when they're young, they say everything, all these different things smells like truffles because it has a little bit of all these different things. Eggs, it can even go through the pores of eggs. So this one is the one that's mostly in the market. This is tuber melanosporum. This one is the one that has anandamide in it, the endocannabinoid. So this one, I don't have the numbers in my head right now, but if you look up the research about truffles producing anandamide, this truffle has enough anandamide in an amount that's regularly consumable by somebody that would eat this to induce adult neurogenesis. So really cool for that. This one smells more like cognac, more solventy, a little painty. This is the one that I learned about how to cultivate the most whenever I was in Spain. This shit's crazy. The soil where they're cultivating this in Spain. So I don't know how much y'all know about geography in the world and all this type of shit. Most people left central Spain after the world wars, after industrialization. Most people in Spain live on the coast. And central Spain is mostly uninhabited. It's like old castles, old villages that's like falling apart. Maybe one person lives in a whole village or something. Look at this soil. This soil is less than 1% organic matter. That shit is rocks. That's just rocks because the Romans came through and they did agriculture for thousands of years. And if we know anything about that agriculture, it sucks. It's washing away our fucking soil. So there is no organic, this 1%, less than 1% organic matter. How the fuck they grow anything out here? Some people figure out how to grow olives out here, but they figure out how to grow truffles. Truffles colonizes the entire roots. I don't like that word. Truffles myceliates the entire roots, right? It covers the whole roots. It's literally interfacing with trees that are fully mycorrhized. The actual roots of the tree doesn't make any contact with the soil. The fungus makes all contact with the soil and does all acquisition and interactions with the soil to the tree. So this fungus is turning rocks and what's left over from all this agriculture into food that can create trees in a place where nothing else would grow. Crazy. I have a crazy drone shot that I'm not able to show, but I can show this still. This is one of the truffle plantations I went to in outside Teruel, Spain, outside central Spain. These trees are production age. These are around 10 to 15 years old. This is Quercus ilex. This is the holly oak, the oak that doesn't drop its leaves in the wintertime. They're growing these in these plantations. This is may look like monocrop agriculture, but it also represents the introduction of biomass back into some of these spaces where there wasn't biomass anymore. So this can change. I met one truffle farmer. I wasn't allowed to feature him in my documentary or show his face in my documentary. Fucking illest dude. His family is really poor. He's old, dude. He's like in the like 70s, 80s. Not that that's old. You know what I'm saying? This man was lively. This man was alive. Like he said, I went to go pick a truffle, and he's like, this is gonna be 4-ounce truffle. It's gonna be right there. I'm digging this shit up, and we weighed that shit afterwards. 4-ounce fucking truffle. I'm like, yo, what the fuck, bro? That shit's crazy, bro. How do you know that shit? Like, his family, they were very poor when he was younger. His dad made him go out into the woods with a dog for weeks at a time and look for truffles because they could sell the truffles. And he would just meet up with his dad and he would just get the truffles. And then he would send them back out. And there's like wild boars and shit he's fighting and all this type of shit. But he saw the wild traffiers before they weren't there anymore. A traffier is like a tree that produces truffles or orchard of that produces truffles. So he saw them before they're not there anymore. After industrialization, people stopped depending on the forest and they let them turn wild. We don't have wild because we have private land. You can't have wild with private land because then we don't allow the right animals to migrate through the environments anymore. So we're missing the moving pieces that are necessary for this place to actually be wild. So we get a lot of trees, we get more vegetation than should be in the environment. Where was I going with this? So after industrialization, people stopped managing the forest. They stopped cutting down things in the forest for coal and for power. And this happened the same way in Japan, and they lost matsutake production because matsutake is also mycorrhizal. So in Europe, they lost truffle production because people stopped managing the forest and they let it turn wild. It turned into an environment that wasn't conducive of these beautiful, crazy expensive types of mushrooms like matsutake and truffles. So they're not in the wild as much as they used to be. And some of these trees used to be over 100 years old, 150 years old, and people can't get their trees to be over 50 years old. He got his trees over 50 years old. He has trees that he planted over 50 years old and they're in polyculture. None of the other farms I went to had any kind of polyculture. They're preventing polyculture on these farms. And the truffles actually themselves, in a space like this, they create what they call brulees. So around the entire root zone of the tree, the truffle will create a sterile zone. So this is actually how you can find truffles in the wild because there'll be, I know some of y'all seen this if you've been in the woods. Like I lived like the past like 15 years of my life mostly in the woods. Sometimes you're in the woods, you'll see a circle around a tree. It's like, why the fuck is there a circle of nothing around this tree? It's because there's a mycorrhizal fungus under there that's keeping everything sterile. So when it wants to produce mushrooms, it has nothing in the way. And truffles will do this too. All different kinds of mycorrhizal mushrooms will do this. So they'll create these sterile zones. So the truffles will do this. But this man had the only truffle polyculture. And the woman that taught me about truffles, Luz Cocina, she runs a lab called Myco Lab in Pusol, Spain. She said his truffle polyculture farm is the most productive plantation that she's seen, and with the oldest trees, and nobody else knows how to do this shit. I was able to film some of his farms, but I couldn't show his face or say his name. So tuberostivum, this one's also cultivated the same way, mostly with quercus species, also with hazelnuts, mostly with these like hardwood nut producing trees. I actually have these if you want to go check out my booth by the check-in tent afterwards. I have some of these dry aged in koji. I can talk more about that later. I don't want to get too much off topic because I got a lot to do in the next next hour or so. I got to judge some dabs, you know what I'm saying? And I need one right now. I'm going a little too fast, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, tuberostivum. This one is a summer truffle. This one is like in Europe, the less desirable black truffle. Doesn't smell as loud. This one's more like savory, kind of gassy, more like musty, kind of like a little bit of a little bit of a dark fruit note, like a stone fruit kind of note. South Carolina. This one is one of the first truffles that's been cultivated in commercial scale in the U.S. And it's cultivated by an African engineer that figured out how to cultivate it in his dreams. It's cultivated on loblolly pine in South Carolina right now. So really cool plantation. This one's more chemically, and it has more of a market here in the U.S. now, especially because we don't have these, which are the most valuable truffles in the world right now, tuber magnatum, the big white truffles. These ones sell for crazy, crazy expensive. These ones get sold to like royal families, sheiks, like fucking kings, queens, all sorts of shit. And this one is almost exclusively a wild product. There's only a couple plantations in the whole world that figure out how to cultivate this one. This one is one that may be able to be found in Northern California. This one is the Oregon black truffle. It smells like pineapples and cherries, very fruity. This one is good for desserts and things like this. It's one of the first ones that I found in like Northern Washington near Bellingham. And then we have a tuber organense, tuber gibosum. These ones are known as the Oregon whites. Both of them are known as the Oregon whites. These are crazy gassy. These ones smell like cologne, like men's cologne, like crazy, like sharp vetiver, herbal notes, like all sorts of like solventy kind of high, like with those smells that you feel at the top of your nose more when you open something and you can feel that smell in the top of your nose. Tuber leonii. This one I think is going to have a lot more cultivation in the U.S., especially in the eastern U.S., because this one grows on all sorts of filbert trees. This one grows on all sorts of filbert trees, and it's described as the pecan truffle because it's been described in the southern U.S. and Texas, growing in pecan orchards. So a lot of times people found these things because of what we were doing, and they just started to grow on things that we were associated with. Because a lot more people didn't understand about this level of the environment, of like actually going out in the environment and digging up in the woods and looking for these things. Most people found them in their own human environments. Imea gigantea. This one is known as the Blue Ridge truffle, not to be confused with the Appalachian truffle. So the Blue Ridge truffle, this one is more of a cheesy, garlicky one, especially, and this one as well. This Appalachian truffle, more of a garlicky, savory, cheesy kind of note. But this one's being cultivated in Canada and in Maryland. So this one can be cultivated. I don't know which tree they're using right now. This one may be able to be found out here. This one is found in Oregon, described in Oregon. This is the Oregon brown truffle. It's very rare, Calipuia brunea. This one, again, really allium-y, really oniony. So I really want to spend the next like 10 years of my life describing undescribed truffles and figuring out about cultivating them and running analytics in nurseries and truffle plantations around the US for research. Like I want to run research plantations all around as many places as I can. So I'm just working on setting up my life to do those things. So I have been for the past 10 years, honestly. That's why I taught myself how to do DNA sequencing and why I incorporated an ecological research business as a high school dropout, and nobody gave a fuck or told me I was crazy or all this type of shit. I'm just like, there's no school I could go to in the US. I can't afford school in the US. I'm gonna fucking learn how to do the shit I need to do. I'm gonna do this shit. So I taught myself how to do all this shit so I can go into fucking woods, describe this shit while it's still here to describe, tell people there's shit that's valuable that's in the woods before they destroy this shit. Because where I live in Pennsylvania, they're destroying all the fucking woods, and there's so much shit there that people doesn't know that's worth something. And I'm like, all right, everybody told me I'm fucking crazy until I found the shit that's actually worth a lot of fucking money. And I made myself valuable in this world of shit. Because before I had my head shaved and walk around in the woods with no shoes on, high as fuck. I don't give a fuck about this world. You know what I'm saying? But my best friend said, I think you're crazy and I think you don't know anything you're talking about. I was like, all right, bet, bro. All right, let me show you in your reality why I know exactly what the fuck I'm talking about. And so I was like, let me just show everybody. Because like all the cool people are already saved. Everybody that needs to know this shit is caught the fuck up and doesn't even speak this language anymore. Most people don't even know how to fucking read. So I was like, all right, let me get on the internet and make this shit digestible content for people. Let me get hundreds of thousands of interactions on a monthly basis so I can get censored the fuck. My account just got deleted for the 5th fucking time last week. Like, figuring out how to stay in their censored realm because you can't talk about being healthy or having a fucking free mind or being interdependent because that's censorable content. You know what I'm saying? So I had to figure out how to make these like little digestible little shorts to get people into the woods and shit like that. But I did it effectively. Now we get 500 to 700 people out in the woods every single year at Myco Fest, the first weekend in August, every single year in central Pennsylvania, a full weekend long event with experts from around the world that teach about everything mycology, from materials to remediation to medicine, hands-on. We have world-leading philosophers, Charles Eisenstein, people coming out here showing us how to make the better world our hearts know is possible. I know all y'all know about this shit. That's what we're doing. This is happening in real time right now. That's why we smoke so much herb. We're fighting against this shit right now. Bonfire upon Babylon. Woo! Bonfire upon Babylon. Burn this shit down. Thank you guys for listening to my talk.
Where the fungi grow, William Padilla-Brown knows the way to go. Mushroom magic, he's a guided teacher with my conjuring wisdom. He's a shining beacon from the cordyceps he cultivates with care, sharing knowledge, breathing life into the air. Yes, you better learn about the fungi, see the world. Yes, you better cultivate your mind, let it unfurl. Teaching children on the ground wants to sustainable practices, making dreams come true. Hand in hand, man, he's a citizen scientist, breaking only one. Together with nature we can rise and never fall. Yeah, you better learn about the fungi, see the world. Yes, you better cultivate your mind and it unfurl. In the ball and the vein, every life best to pop. And every seed roll up by the science. Everybody go. Money spent is fun while. Oh, you go these days. You can show a deed of manipulation. Yes, you better learn about the fungi, see the world. Yes, you better cultivate your mind and it unfurl.